Welcome to Quiz Time. My name is Anne and I will be your host for this quiz about the USA. Good luck! Which is the longest river in the United States? The Mississippi River, the Missouri River, or the Colorado River? The Missouri River. Which state is known as the Sunshine State? California, Arizona, or Florida? Florida. What is the capital of Texas? Houston, Austin, or Dallas? Austin. Thomas Jefferson was the first president of the United States. True or false? False. Which city is known as the Big Apple? New York City, Los Angeles, or Chicago? New York City. In which state is the Grand Canyon located? Arizona, Utah, or Nevada? Arizona. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, or Thomas Jefferson? Thomas Jefferson. Which state has the nickname the Last Frontier? Hawaii, Alaska, or Montana? Alaska. What year did the United States land the first man on the moon? 1965, 1969, or 1972? 1969. What is the largest state in the USA by area? Alaska. Which ocean is on the east coast of the United States? The Atlantic Ocean. Which is the smallest state in the USA by area? Rhode Island, Delaware, or Connecticut? Rhode Island. Which city is home to the Liberty Bell? Boston, Philadelphia, or Washington, D.C.? Philadelphia. Who was the 16th President of the United States? Andrew Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant, or Abraham Lincoln? Abraham Lincoln. What is the national flower of the United States? The rose, the tulip, or the sunflower? The rose. What is the highest peak in the contiguous United States? Mount Rainier, Mount Whitney, or Mount Albert? Mount Whitney. Which is the oldest university in the United States? Harvard, Yale, or Princeton? Harvard. Who was the principal author of the US Constitution? James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, or Benjamin Franklin? James Madison. Which state is known as the Bluegrass State? Kentucky. Which is the largest freshwater lake in the United States? Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, or Lake Superior? Lake Superior. Which state is home to the famous landmark Mount Rushmore? Wyoming, North Dakota, or South Dakota? South Dakota. Who wrote the national anthem of the United States? Francis Scott Key. Who was the first American to orbit the Earth? Neil Armstrong, John Glenn, or Alan Shepard? John Glenn. Which is the tallest building in the United States? The Empire State Building, the Willis Tower, the One World Trade Center? The One World Trade Center. Which city is known as the City of Brotherly Love? Philadelphia, Boston, or New York City? Philadelphia. Who was the only president to serve more than 2 terms? Franklin D. Roosevelt. Who was the first Secretary of the Treasury? Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, or James Madison? Alexander Hamilton. Who directed the film Gone with the Wind? George Cukor, David Lean, or Victor Fleming? Victor Fleming. Which artist is known for his paintings of Campbell's soup cans? Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, or Jackson Pollock? Andy Warhol. Which famous photographer is known for his black and white landscape photographs of the American West, especially the Yosemite National Park? Ansel Adams. Which dance style emerged in the United States during the 1920s? The Charleston, the tango, or the waltz? The Charleston. Which author won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 1953 for his novel The Old Man and the Sea? William Faulkner, John Steinbeck, or Ernest Hemingway? Ernest Hemingway. What year was the Declaration of Independence signed? 1776, 1783, or 1791? 1776. Which US president issued the Emancipation Proclamation? Ulysses S. Grant, Abraham Lincoln, or George Washington? Abraham Lincoln. What landmark Supreme Court case established judicial review in 1803? Brown v. Board of Education, Roe v. Wade, or Marbury v. Madison? Marbury v. Madison. Which US president implemented the New Deal? Herbert Hoover, Franklin D. Roosevelt, or Harry S. Truman? Franklin D. Roosevelt. Who was the commanding general of the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War? George Washington, Benedict Arnold, or Thomas Paine? George Washington. Which amendment to the US Constitution granted women the right to vote? The 18th, 19th, or 21st? The 19th. Who was the author of the influential pamphlet Common Sense? Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, or John Adams? Thomas Paine. What major construction project was completed in 1869, linking the east and west coasts of the US? The Erie Canal, the Panama Canal, or the Transcontinental Railroad? The Transcontinental Railroad. Which US president is known for the Gettysburg Address? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, or Abraham Lincoln? Abraham Lincoln. What was the main objective of the Lewis and Clark expedition? To explore and map the newly acquired Louisiana Territory. Who was the first US president to resign from office? Richard Nixon, Andrew Johnson, or Bill Clinton? Richard Nixon. What was the primary purpose of the Monroe Doctrine? To oppose European colonialism in the Americas. Which was the primary purpose of the Marshall Plan? To provide military aid to South Korea, to fund the space race, or to rebuild European economies after World War II? To rebuild European economies after World War II. What was the main goal of the Apollo 2 mission? To land a man on the moon? Which American aviator made the first solo non-stop transatlantic flight in 1927? Amelia Earhart, Charles Lindbergh, or Howard Hughes? Charles Lindbergh. Which structure was completed in 1883 connecting Manhattan and Brooklyn? The Brooklyn Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, or the Hoover Dam? The Brooklyn Bridge. Who is known for founding the Standard Oil Company? Andrew Carnegie, Cornelius Vanderbilt, or John D. Rockefeller? John D. Rockefeller. What was the primary purpose of the Homestead Act of 1862? To provide land for westward expansion. What significant event did the Seneca Falls Convention of 1848 address? Abolition of slavery, Native American treaties, or women's rights and suffrage? Women's rights and suffrage. Which famous trial in 1925 debated the issue of teaching evolution in schools? The Scopes monkey trial, the Rosenberg trial, or the Lindbergh kidnapping trial? The Scopes monkey trial. Who was the industrialist known as the Wizard of Menlo Park? Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, or Alexander Graham Bell? Thomas Edison. What was the main focus of the Civilian Conservation Corps during the New Deal? Environmental conservation projects. Who is considered the father of the American Constitution? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, or James Madison? James Madison. Which was the first artificial satellite launched by the United States? Explorer 1, Sputnik, or Vanguard 1? Explorer 1. Which US governmental agency was created in response to the launch of Sputnik by the Soviet Union? The FBI, CIA, or NASA? NASA. Who was the first American woman in space? Judith Matthews, Sally Ride, or Valentina Tereshkova? Sally Ride. What famous speech begins with 87 years ago? The Gettysburg Address. What famous structure was completed in 1886 as a gift from France? The Statue of Liberty, Washington Monument, or Lincoln Memorial? The Statue of Liberty. Which civil rights activist refused to give up her bus seat in Montgomery, Alabama? Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, or Rosa Parks? Rosa Parks. Which inventor is known for his work with the phonograph and electric light bulb? Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, or Alexander Graham Bell? Thomas Edison. Who led the American forces to victory at the Battle of Yorktown? George Washington, Ulysses S. Grant, or Andrew Jackson? George Washington. What was the primary cause of the Trail of Tears? The Gold Rush, the end of the Civil War, or forced relocation of Native American tribes? Forced relocation of Native American tribes. What was the purpose of the GI Bill, enacted in 1944? To fund veterans' education and training. What was the main goal of the Lewis and Clark expedition? To establish a trade route to Asia, to find gold, or to explore the Louisiana Purchase? To explore the Louisiana Purchase. Who was the first African American Supreme Court Justice? Booker T. Washington, Thurgood Marshall, or Clarence Thomas? Thurgood Marshall. Who is credited with founding the American Red Cross in 1881? Florence Nightingale, Clara Barton, or Dorothea Dix? Clara Barton. What was the purpose of the Underground Railroad? To help enslaved people escape to freedom. What major event occurred at the Alamo in 1836? A peace treaty was signed, gold was discovered, or a battle in the Texas Revolution? A battle in the Texas Revolution. Which author is known for writing The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn? Mark Twain, Herman Melville, or Nathaniel Hawthorne? Mark Twain. What was the significance of the Missouri Compromise? It regulated slavery in the Western Territories. Who is known as the father of the American Revolution? Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, or Thomas Paine? Thomas Paine. Who wrote the influential essay Civil Disobedience? Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, or Walt Whitman? Henry David Thoreau. What was the primary purpose of the Monroe Doctrine? To prevent European colonization in the Americas. What influential book did Harriet Beecher Stowe write that fueled the abolitionist movement? The Scarlet Letter, Moby Dick, or Uncle Tom's Cabin? Uncle Tom's Cabin. Which diplomat was responsible for negotiating the Treaty of Paris in 1783? Thomas Jefferson, John Jay, or Benjamin Franklin? Benjamin Franklin. Which state is the US #1 dairy producer? California. Who was the main author of the Federalist Papers? James Madison, John Jay, or Alexander Hamilton? Alexander Hamilton. Which historical figure is known for his midnight ride? Ethan Allen, Paul Revere, or Benedict Arnold? Paul Revere. Which industrialist revolutionized the automobile industry with assembly line production? Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, or J.P. Morgan? Henry Ford. What was the main purpose of the Federalist Papers? To promote the ratification of the Constitution. What was the name of the first American satellite to orbit the Earth? Explorer 1, Vanguard 1, or Sputnik? Explorer 1. Which American cultural icon is famous for his work in silent films? Mary Pickford, Buster Keaton, or Charlie Chaplin? Charlie Chaplin. Who was the nurse known as the Angel of the Battlefield during the Civil War? Florence Nightingale, Claire Barton, or Dorothea Dix? Claire Barton. What was the purpose of the Dawes Act of 1887? To assimilate Native Americans into American society. Which influential American jazz musician is known as the father of jazz? Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, or Miles Davis? Louis Armstrong. The purpose of the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890 was to prevent monopolistic business practices. True or false? True. What is the name of the famous speech delivered by Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963 during the March on Washington? I Have a Dream. Who was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court during the landmark case Brown v. Board of Education? John Marshall, Warren Burger, or Earl Warren? Earl Warren. Which government agency was created in 2002 in response to the 9/11 terrorist attacks? The CIA, FBI, or DHS? The DHS. Name the policy aimed at preventing the spread of communism during the Cold War. Containment, détente, or rollback. Containment. Who was the main architect of the US Constitution and the fourth President of the US? Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, or George Washington? James Madison. Which famous American author wrote the novel The Great Gatsby? Ernest Hemingway, John Steinbeck, or F. Scott Fitzgerald? F. Scott Fitzgerald. What was the main issue addressed by the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Racial segregation and discrimination. What was the name of the first successful American colony established in 1607? Jamestown, Plymouth, or Roanoke? Jamestown. Which American scientist is known for developing the polio vaccine? Louis Pasteur, Albert Sabin, or Jonas Salk? Jonas Salk. What famous event involved a protest against British taxation by dumping tea into Boston Harbor in 1773? The Intolerable Acts, the Boston Tea Party, or the Stamp Act Rebellion? The Boston Tea Party. Which city hosted the 1893 World's Fair, also known as the Columbian Exposition? New York City, Philadelphia, or Chicago? Chicago. What was the name of the countercultural movement that originated in the Haight-Ashbury district of San Francisco during the 1960s? The hippie movement. Thank you for playing. Drop your score in the comments and please like and subscribe if you want to be notified every time we post a new quiz and have more fun on quiz time.